Hey guys, Tammy here. And in this video, my topic is cut your losses. This is a real important lesson to learn sooner rather than later, because usually the process of divorce and child custody is like, when you put a frog in water and you turn it up little by little by little by little until they boil to death, right? And then it's too late. And that's kind of how this divorce and custody process can go and can feel. And before you know it, you're in boiling water. So we want to prevent that. And the way to do that is through cutting your losses. As I dive into this, let me just remind you, if you like this video, don't forget to hit like. Also subscribe to the channel so that you get notified as new videos are released. And as always, please feel free to share this on social media. I was really reminded of this concept from a client last week about cutting your losses. And she's really getting to the point in her process where she's starting to understand, like, I just am done. I just won out. I'm over it. And a lot of times people will hit that point, but they don't hit that point until they're completely broke, have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on attorney's fees, or are just beat to death by the other person and the court system. And the problem is that when you first go into this, so many people, I think especially in the attorney fee realm, I think this is a real easy concept for people to understand, because you go in and you put a few thousand down for a retainer, right? And if you have a typical divorce and child custody case, or even just child custody case, what will usually happen is that attorney will go through that retainer, it will be gone, then they will be asking you for more money. And a lot of times people come out owing their attorney a fairly decent lump sum at the end, and they're making monthly payments. I see that happen a lot. And so we're going along and we're spending this money, and it's like, oh, I've already spent $5,000. I'm this far in. Okay, well, I can't quit now. I've already put this much in. Let me put another $5,000 in. Okay, well, now I've put $10,000 in. Now I'm, this far down the road. Okay, now let me, I got to stick with it. I've already put $10,000 in. Let me put another $5,000 in, right? And we just keep going on this trajectory. And part of the problem is a lot of times we don't even know where the end point is. We don't even know where the end of the road is in our case. A lot of times people can't even tell me, like, do you think you're a quarter of the way through the process, a third of the way, half the way? Have you asked your attorney these questions, like how much more is in front of you? And of course, our favorite answer, which I talked about a few videos ago, is it depends, right? Attorney can't even usually tell you exactly how much everything is going to cost. They can give you a range, they can give you an idea, but a lot of it depends on the other side. Depends on the other side, what all the things that they try to throw at you are. Do they ask for discovery? Do they do a deposition? Do they do all these things? The expenses just can continue to compound on top of each other. And then at the same time, we start having court hearings, right? After we're a few $1,000s in, usually, we'll finally have a court hearing. And then you go into that court hearing, and a lot of times you don't get the outcome that you're looking for. And sometimes you get a really bad outcome that you totally weren't expecting. People start to become disillusioned, I think, kind of at that point. But a lot of times it's kind of like, okay, well, maybe that was just a one-off, or that didn't go well. So let me kind of change and see if I can do things a little differently. Or maybe the court's, not hearing me or not understanding. Let me be a little more emphatic about what I'm saying or my approach or what I'm doing. Let me get an expert involved. Let me get notes from the doctor. Let me get CPS. Let me get a police report. Let me get, and we start like grasping at all these straws out here, because we're like, okay, they're not getting it. What do I need to do to help them get it? And so we start pulling in more experts, more things, which also equates to more money, right? Same thing. And so we're continuing to put good money after bad, right? Because a lot of times you still don't get the outcome. Why does that happen? Because as you're out there and you're grasping for the expert or the report or the whatever it is, a lot of times we don't even have a concept as a layperson that how much of an impact is that actually going to have on the outcome for the court? Is the court really going to weigh this particular thing heavily, this particular report or this particular incident or this particular thing? One of the things that just comes to mind as an example is like on child welfare reports, right? CPS, or some states call it DCFS or DCS, or, there's all kinds of different acronyms, but essentially child welfare. And what will happen is somebody will be like, oh, there's been 7 child welfare reports against the other person, right? So they'll go down and they'll take the time off work, go down, pay to get the reports, whatever they do, have their attorney do a subpoena, whatever it takes to get the reports. And then you find out later on, well, actually, if all these reports are unfounded, it's probably not going to, probably not going to have a lot of impact on the judge. None of them are founded. So if none of them are founded, it's essentially like it didn't happen, right? Because we're innocent until proven guilty. So there's no guilty verdict sort of on that child welfare report. So it really doesn't have very much weight at all. So now you just went through this whole thing to gather this report or do these things or whatever, or spend the time, effort, and energy only to find out, oh, this doesn't really help. I think people go down this path where they don't understand what is and isn't important until they've already spent tons of time, tons of money, and tons of effort. And they just get to the point where, again, they're either out of money or they're exhausted or whatever. And they reach this point where they're finally ready to cut their losses. And I'm not saying that that's not a good thing to do. I think it's good to be prudent and to understand when it's time to do that. But I also think that one of the ways to avoid getting to that point is by understanding from the very beginning what those heavily weighted things are and aren't. Putting good money after bad is also akin to putting good effort after bad, right? You can put good effort in on the wrong thing and not get the result. Okay. And that's the thing that I think people frequently do. They put in effort and they put in money and they put in resources and time, but they put it towards the wrong thing. Then they don't get the result that they want. And eventually they're forced to just cut their losses and move on. And I think that if you can learn from the very beginning what the factors, the heavily weighted factors are, and what's important to your judge, what's important to the court, and what you need to focus on, then you have the ability to at least put your money where it will give you the most leverage. And hey, look, I'm not saying that at the end that you may not need to cut your losses and move on anyway. Sometimes it's not worth arguing with the narcissist. Sometimes they are willing to spend every last dime they have in an effort to keeping you from getting it. And so if you're continuing to chase that, then what good does it do you? I talk about this with my ex-husband, not with my ex-husband, but about my ex-husband in particular a lot, because he owes me a large sum of back child support. And, it's about $150,000 and my kids are like in their 30s, right? So this has been outstanding for a really long time, but I have two options. I can either put my effort into chasing him, and I'm probably never going to get the money from him because that's just how he has done this entire time. Or I can put the effort into my own life, my own resources, my own career, my own ability to help other people, and do what I can to support myself in that, right? That is a form of cutting my losses, right? I'm not going to keep chasing, and trying to get blood out of a turnip, because sometimes you can't, right? You cannot get blood out of a turnip, and you have to accept that at some point and cut your losses and be able to move on. Narcissists just have this uncanny way of refusing to allow you any closure because they will win at all costs and they don't care who gets trampled in the meantime. And for most of us, we are not willing to sacrifice our families and our children in the name of winning. And I think many times a narcissist or high conflict person is, because they feel like that winning aspect is life or death for them. And whoever they have to sacrifice in the process of that, then that just is what it is. For most of us that are not high conflict and don't kind of have those issues that we're coping with, we're not willing to sacrifice our children and our, at some point, our own mental and sometimes physical well-being around, these issues. So know when to cut your losses, know when it's time to preserve your family, to preserve your finances, to preserve your own well-being, and don't keep chasing after something that isn't going to prove fruitful in the end and is only going to continue to rob you of these important resources that you have. Okay. If you'd like to learn more about my coaching, you can go to divorceuniversityonline.com/VIP-coaching. There's a link on that page. You can book a time to speak to a member of my staff, learn more about my coaching services and how I might be able to support you on this journey. See you guys next time.